Hello everyone, welcome to AdaDerana BIZ 24. Since recently, we've been giving a lot of focus to higher education related discussions. Why? Because we feel it is important to bridge the gaps between the higher education system where we are now and where we want to go as a country, and to help our country succeed in getting the right higher education system in place. And also we feel it's important as media to help you make your decision for higher education. If you are a parent, for your children you might want to make the decision, and we all know that A-level results are already out and you must be watching this in order to make a decision for your children. And today in this episode we are going to give special focus to healthcare industry related education. And to have this discussion, I have two professionals with me representing Iihs. And let me now introduce them to you. First, I would like to introduce Ms. Miriam Josiah, Head of Research and Curriculum Development, Iihs. Hello Miriam, how are you?
Doing fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining with AdaDerana today, and nice to have you here at the discussion. And next, I would like to introduce Ms. Ayodhya Karunaratna. She is the Head of Physiotherapy Department at Iihs, and also to note, she is the youngest chartered physiotherapist in South Asia. Pleasure to have you in AdaDerana for this discussion, Ayodhya. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well, thank you.
To start off this conversation, I would like to ask both of you a general question, that is, now with everything that's going on in the country, education is a big topic. And when it comes to healthcare education, there's a lot of hullabaloo going on. As healthcare professionals, I would like to ask Miriam first, what is your point of view about the current state of education in Sri Lanka?
Well, thanks, Ashani. If I must say that I started off my healthcare career also as a nurse. So I studied about 15 years ago, and I have seen a drastic change from when I studied to the kind of teaching that we deliver now for students. And it's been great. It's a massive improvement, but I feel, because in my field of work right now, I work with international universities, so I see there's so much more further that healthcare education can go, and so much we can bring for our students here in Sri Lanka. So it would be amazing to see how much we can actually improve healthcare education. I'm not saying it's bad, but there's still so much we can do.
Yeah, that's exactly. I would like to ask the same question from Ayodhya as well. What is your point of view about the current state of the healthcare education?
Well, I think with COVID we've hit like a really bad end, and now we're kind of developing. So even in Sri Lanka we've got a big technological involvement, and all, because healthcare is very different, because it's not just theory, it's about practicals, and it's about treating patients, and there's a lot of talk about patient-centered care these days. So now healthcare education is kind of moving towards patient-centered care, where patients are more involved in the healthcare education as well. And there's a different global view on healthcare education. So I think because Iihs is kind of learning from the pioneers in all the other countries, and within the global context as well, we do provide healthcare professionals who are world ready.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that answer. And now getting into today's conversation, I would like to tell you all, we are going to focus on how Iihs is contributing towards a global passport in the South Asian region. And to start off that part of the conversation related to Iihs, I would like to ask Miriam. Now we know Iihs is a pioneer in healthcare education, and over 2 decades you all have been maintaining the standards of providing high quality education and maintaining that international qualification standards. I would like to ask you, what was the concept behind Iihs initially, and how has the journey been so far?
Sure. If you look at where we started, Sri Lanka has been known for one thing and one thing only, that we export, as when it comes to human resource, and that's housemates. So it took a vision of some very caring healthcare professionals who were trained abroad and saw the despicable nature in which our Sri Lankan people were treated as housemaids in various parts of the world, and decided that this kind of trend has to change, and it has to change now. So they decided to bring in international level curriculums to train our young people to be nurses and to be more qualified and reverse this trend to exporting skilled labor instead of unskilled labor. So with this, they started up a school in Kandy, and for which I was one of the students, so that's where I studied.
Yeah.
And over the years, we have trained now close to about 2,500 to 3,000 professional nurses, and they are on their way, and many of them are working in foreign countries now, well established, and still many are on the in the process of being trained, and they can go to different parts of the world, first world countries, and work as international professionals. So it started off as nursing, but we have expanded our wings into all allied health professions, physiotherapy, biomedical science, healthcare administration, and moving into occupational therapy and speech therapy, and so much more. And keeping up with international standards is what's the trick, because as we all know, we all love to we always look towards the first world countries for what we look as standard, and if you need to go and work there, you need to be able to live up to those standards. So what we do is we partnered with international universities, reputed universities right across the globe, starting from the US to Australia to the UK. And what we have done with our programs is standardize them to meet these standards that are required by international countries. And we've provided programs that are not only affordable and accessible to everyone, but also we follow the concept of inclusivity and never really putting people out of the picture, that anyone can choose to be a healthcare professional. And also we transform. So our curriculums are such that it's inbuilt transformation for our students to meet the international requirement. It's not enough just to learn a profession, but you need to meet the market demand as well. So where we started and where we are, we have broken down tons of barriers.
Amazing.
And we have not stopped. We will continue to tear down these barriers that people think are barriers, but it's nothing for us. We would love to see our country flourish with the standards and with students that are stabilized professionals in foreign countries.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that answer. I think that lays a very good foundation for our discussion today, and for you to get to know a lot about IHS. That was very helpful. And from that, I would like to ask Ayod the other question. Now, you are a professional who has studied in Sri Lanka, and also you've lived in the UK. The education system has been changing, just like Miriam said, over time. It has improved a lot. How do you see this change of education system in Sri Lanka? And also, let's support the children and the parents who are trying to make a decision of sending their children abroad, because migrating has become the new normal and the topic in hand. So how can we guide them as well?
Yes, so I would like to start that question with like the generic A-levels that all the students do, or the O-levels that the students do. So what they actually do is they're spoon-fed with all the information, so they don't actually learn what they have to learn, but they're just learning what the teachers teach them.
Yeah.
But with that, and there's a lot of overload of information these days. Everyone has access to technology. All the A-level students have access to some technology. And with that, there's an overload of information where students just learn what they have to. They just like a parrot, they just learn what they have to. But at IIHS, we've got a different set of learning strategies, and for each learner, we've got their own learning strategies. Even with all the programs that we deliver at IIHS, when they come to IIHS, we do get their learning styles, and where we appropriately teach them. So with that, we've got like innovation that's coming out. So these students are ready to solve problems. Whereas in the A-level culture or in the Sri Lankan education system, where the primary education system, we are just teaching them to solve problems in a way that we all have done it before. But now it's become innovation. So with regards to the overload of information, I think it's easier to compare IIHS because it's not a dream for IIHS anymore. it's become a reality because we've done it for the last 20 years.
Yes.
And we've sent a lot of students, like she just mentioned, we've sent over 500 students, and there's like a lot of graduates who are working and learning in other countries as well.
Yeah.
So this has become already a reality where a lot of students have got the opportunity because of the learning styles that we have at IIHS.
That's amazing to know. And I would like to ask Miriam, now you mentioned that it's important that IIHS matches the international qualification standards. Why do you think international qualifications are important to Sri Lankan students is my question to you.
Okay, as I mentioned before, international countries and their governments have their own standards in which they stick by, and healthcare as a profession is a regulated profession, so there are standards and regulations that students have to understand and meet. So when we create a program, it's not enough to just fit the local arena.
Right.
If you want to work in a foreign country, you have to know what their standards are. So that's what we've taken into account when we develop our programs. We look at what the international standard is. We work with all the international universities. We've done mappings of our content and curriculum, and worked with international experts in their fields of the nursing, physiotherapy and biomedical science. And we've standardized our curriculum. That's why we have these pathways, because they have recognized our content as equivalent to their first 2 or 3 years of their program, and hence mapped it against that. And hence these pathways are created where students can complete 3 years of their diploma here and go into the final year of their degree, which is very difficult for many universities to do and to obtain. So that's the whole reason that if you want an international qualification, you need to meet the international standards. So with all that expertise being embedded into our curriculums, we guarantee that our pathways are secure, our students are prepared, and because just as Ayodhya said, we spoon feed our children from day one.
Yeah.
It's always what the teacher says is what you have to write in a book. It's
Yeah.
that way, or there's no highway option. But what we have brought into our education methodologies here in IIHS is learning from what they are teaching their kids in international countries. So if you look at the UK or you look at Australia, it's from their childhood they teach the kids to be independent and to learn on their own, which is what we've never had. So if you take a child that has not got this type of training and then throw them into the deep end where you have to learn on your own, it's difficult. So they feel the pressure, the culture shock is there, and the tendency for failure is higher. So hence we brought those type of trainings here. So from after O-levels, after A-levels, students are taught to think on their own, to search for information, to work as a team, to lead groups and so on. So these are the type of things that are or qualities that are required by an international professional. So I hence if a student comes through our programs, they are not only guaranteed with the knowledge, but also the skills and the values they need to function at their highest in the profession they choose to do.
Right. Thank you so much for that answer as well. But I would like to discuss that in a little bit of more detail, because that's important. The discussion today is about how IIHS is contributing towards giving a global passport in the South Asian region. And just like you mentioned, it's not just the knowledge that we have to focus on, but the culture shock, because we are Sri Lankans after all, and we have that a lot. Soon after A-levels, and when you're going abroad for higher education, only the parents realize, oh, they're going to face all of these challenges. Let's talk about how IIHS is going to prepare students in such a way soon after this break. Welcome back after the break. As you know, before we took the break, we were talking about how IIHS matches the international qualification standards. And we were talking about how they build a competent professional or competent student to face the international challenges. Now, we spoke about, Miriam, we touched upon how knowledge is covered and how they are prepared to go abroad and to meet all those challenges. And at the same time, it's important to talk about how skills are inbuilt in them, and also the attitude, because you face a lot of challenges when you go abroad. How do you prepare a student to face these challenges before you give this global passport from IIHS?
All right, that's a good question. Now what we see in today's day and age, everyone is talking about content, curriculum, and the academic part of everything. So if you look at becoming a nurse, it's not just enough to learn how to do the skills, but the skills itself.
Yeah.
And there's so much that goes into learning a skill, building up confidence and knowing where this skill came from and what it's planning to achieve in the end. So same thing with nursing. When you study nursing, physiotherapy, or anything in the healthcare profession or the field, you would find that it's not enough to learn just one textbook.
Yeah.
And the tendency for us to only stick to one step, what is the reading text for this module or that module? And we stick to that and we don't go out of it. But what is required in an international university, if you look even in Australia, if you look at Deakin, you would find out that the contact with students and the facilitator is minimal. But the amount of study time and personal study that these students have to partake in is immense. So there's a lot of research that has to go around a subject. There's a lot of projects that have to be worked on. So how does a student coming from a background that has not taught them much, how do you get them from that point A to point B? That's what we do in IHS with not just curricular work, but we call it co-curricular, which is built on research around different various subjects where students get into groups, or they can do individual research, and they perform or they present their findings on any topic that they choose and what is obviously trending these days. So other than that, we have what you call extracurricular activities. So that builds up on personality, giving them leadership skills, team building skills, problem solving skills, which is something that is needed in any profession. More so for the healthcare profession, because you will come up with, I mean, you've seen enough of teledramas and things like that that's related to healthcare, where you have a situation that you can't just identify the problem. You have to bring in heads together, think of the symptoms and the signs, and critically analyze the information you have in order to make a diagnosis and treatment, so on. So that's what we do for our students. We teach them all these skills that would help them in their further studies while they study there, subsequently in their profession as well. So we have 5 student bodies that function at IHS. We call that the Student Council, which is responsible for all the entertainment that goes on. So we're not all studies.
Yeah.
So we love to have our fun, our parties, and I know parents are very stringent about it, but kids need a little fun in their lives as well. It's not all about studying.
It's everything coming together in molding the future ready student.
We talk about a lot of holistic patient care, but we bring that to our teaching field and we say a holistic professional, where it's not just the academic, but everything else that will go to build up a profession that can be sustained in their profession, and they will face any challenge and have all the necessary skills. So like I said, we have the Student Council, then we have what you call the Scientific Committee. They are more, co-curricular based. They help with research, with projects, with all our events as well. So we sometimes, now you've probably heard of the events that we hold. Our Scientific Committee is the one that's the driving force, and they are the ones that set things up. So they are able to perform leadership roles, management roles. So we give them those skills as well. Then obviously the sports society, for all those adrenaline junkies that just love have sports. I personally stayed away from those type of societies, pretty evident. But that is also necessary, because even in uni, it's not all about studies. You have to be in a sports or something. You can get scholarships through participating in a sport and doing well in it. So we have the sports society that makes sure that all the sports events happen. Then we have what we call the MAD society, which is comprising music, arts, drama, and dance. So we've noticed that students, obviously from our cultural background, we have a lot of talented young people. So we bring that talent out. And it's a time, for me, music calms me down. It does so much for my personality, because I learned through music and I studied through music as well. And just watching students perform, and the student societies come together and they create events. So you look at a concert or something, we'll have both societies participating and creating some sort of relaxation events for students. And then finally, because you've probably heard we have the green concept at the background of everything we do. So we have the Flora and Fauna Society. So they look into ensuring that every project that we do, that we push forward the green concept. And yeah, so I think we've covered pretty much everything that a student needs and everything that we try to build in and instill in our students to make sure that we go the extra mile for our students and ensuring that they secure their careers and progress further.
That's pretty interesting, because when you hear the word healthcare education itself, a lot of people go into, oh my God, becoming nurses, studying science, studying medicine. That's a lot sometimes. But as you can see, as you heard and as you watched us right now, you know IIHS covers everything and makes you a competent student or a competent professional or future ready professional with a global passport in the South Asian region. Thank you so much for covering that part as well. And now, coming to Ayodhya, I would like to connect the question as well, because now you have started your journey initially with IIHS and then you have gone into the UK, and this is a great transformation. What are some of the challenges that you faced, and did learning and studying with IIHS help you to overcome them, and how did the transformation go?
Yes, so I would like to talk about my first challenge. So I only had like 3 S's for my A levels. So I learned, I was not very studious student, so I didn't learn as much as I should. So I only got 3 S's for my A levels, and I did not have a career opportunity because I could not go to local A level systems. So then heard of IIHS and came to IIHS. So that was my life turning point, because I've become a person I've never thought of becoming, and even my mom used to say, like, I didn't study at all for my A levels, but now when I came to IIHS I was staying up late, I was enjoying myself. So that was my turning point, and that was my transformation. So with that, I think my first challenge, I overtook it by joining IIHS. So with that, everything pretty much seemed to be on page. When I came to IIHS, the first day, Dr. Kitsiri was addressing the students, and what he said was, when you all are graduating from this particular course, I was a physiotherapy student, so you will all have the same same certificate, but it's your responsibility to make it a better CV or a better person. So I think I took that really well into my life. So with that, I did everything I could to make myself achieve more. And with IIHS, I think there were a lot of opportunities for me. I was a part of all the societies that she just mentioned, and I've also presented myself at a lot of conferences and international conferences where I was the first undergraduate student participating in, and I've represented Sri Lanka in so many different forums, international forums. So all of these challenges, IIHS was my first platform and my first spotlight. So with that, I think it was really easy, the transformations that came about. So and I would like to mention also about the societies and then the things that was transforming me. And going to another country, it was so challenging, but with the learning system that she just mentioned about clinical reasoning and being in the profession, and it's not just about learning what's in the book or the textbook information or the textbook theories, but applying that knowledge into a patient. So the clinical reasoning skills that we gained in the internship programs or in the labs that we did our practicals in, so all of that just made a holistic professional and a holistic person rather, to make sure that we are ready to face those challenges. I know a lot of students who came from other countries and from other institutes in my master's program where I did my UK master's in Coventry University. So there were a lot of people who were struggling with those systems because especially like with referencing systems, with reflections, all these words were very new for them. Right. But because I had that initial push from IIHS where I have learned all these things, so it was not alien for me. Right. So that was kind of a very pushing point for me, and it was a challenge definitely, like moving into another country or the cultural shock, but I was kind of transformed in a manner that it wasn't new for me, and I knew all about that. Yeah. So even with the masters, I learned what not to do. And with that, I think it was a good bridging program for me at IIHS, where I had the basic knowledge, and with all that, it was grooming us to becoming that world-ready physiotherapist or the healthcare professional.
Yeah, I think you have a success story there itself, because from getting 3 S's for A-levels and now to becoming the youngest chartered physiotherapist in South Asia, that's a lot, and that's a lot of inspiration there itself. Now, I have a quick question to ask. What are some of the opportunities the future professionals have in the industry?
So there's a lot of opportunities, because I'm a physiotherapist, but for nurses, I mean, there's around, in UK there's around 50,000 nurses who are in need of, like, so they need 50,000 professionals, and Australia there's around 85,000 professionals needed for nursing, and in the US there's around 450,000 nurses who they need. So these are all the opportunities, and within any healthcare professional, like, it's not like the olden ages where they have to stay in the hospital. There's a lot of research opportunities, there's a lot of administrative opportunities. So if you don't like to be in the clinical setting, you can be in any other settings. Like, I am in education right now, but I did have a clinical career before. So like, there's a lot of examples that I could take with healthcare and transforming into other health sectors as well. But there's sustainability in all these healthcare professions, because every other profession can be replaced with a robot, but for healthcare there is a healing touch needed for any healthcare professional, and we can't be replaced with any other thing. So there is a lot of avenues that are opening up with the opportunities that are there with healthcare, but we are irreplaceable.
With that, as we are now coming to the final session of this interview, I would like to ask Miriam the question. Let's help our parents and the children who are watching this, who want to make their higher education decisions. Let's make it a little easy for them. What are some of the factors that they have to consider when deciding their higher education?
All right. So just like I just said, many of the students now are straight after A-levels, and then you're probably deciding, what do I do now? The first step that a parent or even a student should take is to see the area that you like to go into, and I would recommend healthcare as an area. It's not just limited to medicine and nursing, but there is a variety of areas that you can go into, such as physiotherapy, occupational therapy, optometry. The options are vast, but always look for a career that is secure. And if you look up everything in from articles to journals to any publication, the stats show that the healthcare profession has the most secure jobs and doesn't get hit by any sort of economic crisis. Right. Just like we had with COVID, obviously healthcare was never hit by it. It was always in demand and will continue to be in demand. Just like Ayodhya said, there's always a demand for nurses, physiotherapists, biomedical scientists, because in this day and age where technology is moving forward and we are bringing technology into different areas, not just education, but everywhere in the field, we have to keep our knowledge up to date and to meet those standards like we mentioned before. So for parents, always drive your child to follow a career that would definitely be stable. And who else wants to follow a profession where you can, there are many people that got laid off during this COVID, but obviously healthcare professionals kept on going. It was tough, but we pressed on, and we're here, we have overcome. And definitely there'll be similar global challenges that will come up, and definitely the demand will always be there for these healthcare professionals. And it's a career, all the careers under healthcare are interesting. They're not boring, all right? They take you to different areas in life, and where they give you challenges that you learn from, you become better. Now, I started off as a nurse loving to look after people. So it's not only you don't only need to have the personality of caring, but a compassion, just as our founders had. If you don't have compassion, you will not make a change. So in that way, I would tell parents and even students who have to make the final decision on what type of career to do, definitely healthcare is what you need to be in, because it will forever be secure and continue to be secure. The demand will always be there. There is a chance by 2029 there's going to be like over 50% increase in demand for healthcare professionals. All right, so I hope you made the right choice.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for that answer. And just like she mentioned, and as for the discussion, it's a lot of things that you have to decide as a parent for your children, and if you're somebody who is watching this, for you to follow higher education, you have to think about a sustainable profession, as you all mentioned clearly, and also the ROIs to the financial statements to everything has to be considered. And I'm sure you're waiting to know more information about IIHS so that you can make that final decision. So you can get in touch with International Institute of Health Sciences. They are located at number 704 Nigamba Road, Valisara, and you can call them through their hotline 011 465 1144. And thank you so much, Miriam and Ayodhya, for joining this conversation today and during your valuable time. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having us.
And we shall see you soon with another episode of AdaDerana BIZ 24. See you soon.